Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, Black views, and Black opinions. Today is Tuesday, April 26th, and I'm Mimi Brown.
I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo, and on today's report, a Texas death row inmate will go before the U.S. Supreme Court after he says there's evidence that will help him clear his name. And meanwhile, the identity has been released of a white cop who killed a black man. But why did it take weeks for the police chief to finally make his name public knowledge? Then, a San Francisco teacher is under fire for bringing cotton to class. How parents are reacting to the in-school project.
Plus, Megan Thee Stallion sits down for her first interview talking about the alleged shooting incident with Tory Lanez and reveals how it's changed her life forever. And Joe Budden and academics are reuniting for something special 5 years after their popular podcast splits. We have all of that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth, so let's get it.
We're following developing news from the White House. Vice President Kamala Harris has tested positive for COVID-19. The White House says the VP has not been exhibiting any symptoms, and a spokesperson for VP Harris says she has not recently been in physical contact with President Biden. She is the highest ranking person in the U.S. government to contract the virus. VP Harris is fully vaccinated and she's boosted. And officials say she will stay away from the White House and quarantine at home until she tests negative. Last month, her husband, Doug Imhoff, tested positive for the virus. You know, this is just a reminder that COVID is still out there.
Yes.
You know, I think sometimes we are so eager to get back to life and so eager to get back out there. You know, a lot of states are dropping their mask mandates, but, you know, this is the first time someone, you know, of her stature, of her ranking has gotten sick. I mean, they've come close a lot of times,
Absolutely.
But this is, you know, the first person closest to President Biden to contract the virus.
I mean, it really makes you understand why there were so many different airlines who said, hey, you don't have to wear a mask, but the CDC as well as the Biden administration said, hey, we still would like for you guys to wear masks when you're traveling. And it makes a lot of sense why the Biden administration and, of course, Kamala Harris, they're saying that you should still wear a mask because, Mimi, like you said, the virus is still out there. There are still people who are dying. And, of course, we're wishing a speedy recovery to VP Harris.
Look, we're talking about those that have been vaccinated, have booster shots. Yes, you can still get COVID. The symptoms won't be as bad. We do understand that. But this lets us know. And, Demi, you said it best. We talk about the confusion. Imagine being on a plane originally when you didn't have to wear a mask, and then all of a sudden you land in Los Angeles, and there's like, where's your mask at, right? So I really feel like since day one, the CDC has people confused. I'm not saying, you know, I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, but everything just wasn't laid out the way it should be. Should we do this? Should we do that? And that caused some of the friction across our country to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. And they also say that VP Harris, she's doubly boosted, right? So, you know, people are wondering if they should still continue to get boosted, continue to still get vaccinated. And the answer is yes, because studies have shown that when you're vaccinated and boosted, you don't get as sick. You're not hospitalized as much as others who may not have their booster or their COVID shot. So,
and I'm happy that was cleared up, because I think that when the COVID shots came along, everyone was like, oh, well, I'm going to get a COVID shot, so that means I won't get COVID-19 anymore. But I'm happy that it's public knowledge that you still can get COVID, but Mimi, like you're saying again, of course, it just won't be as severe. And also happy that the White House is keeping it transparent and keeping us aware, because they could have just hidden this information from us. We don't know if Trump would have actually, you know, told us and been honest about it. And so I'm happy that they're keeping us transparent in the loop of what's going on, and also letting us know that we should still wear our mask in the event of you being around someone that does have COVID in your area.
Depending on who you ask, some said Trump had it before we all knew he had it. I mean, there were allegations out there about that. But summertime is here. We think about our radio stations, Disney Power 106 and K-Day. We got concerts coming up. People trying to have K-Day getaways to Vegas and things like that. You still have to have precaution. Be safe. You know what's going on within your household, and you don't want to bring anything back there, right?
Absolutely. So the White House says the next step for to find out, just to make sure that President Biden and everyone is safe, they're going to do contact tracing. They're going to go back and find out, you know, who she was with and the people around her. But they did say the last time they were together was at the Easter egg roll, which was maybe like 2 weeks ago or a week ago, April 18th. So they believe Biden is fine, but they're going to do the contract tracing just to make sure.
Yeah, there were a lot of celebrities that were there at that event, rappers and, you know, everybody. family. So hopefully everybody is okay, and you know, everyone they'll know if their status in the coming days. Now, President Biden, he's trying once again to get Congress to pay for COVID-19 funding this week. The Senate failed to pass a $10 billion funding package before they left for Easter recess. Now, officials say they need the money for more vaccines, more tests, as well as masks for American people. So the U.S. is now seeing an uptick in infections after weeks of a decline. Now, nearly 1 million Americans have died from COVID-19 since the pandemic started. 14% of those deaths were African Americans, who only make up 12% of the U.S. population.
New text messages from former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows are revealing just how the former president inner circle was plotting to overturn Joe Biden's victory from Election Day to Inauguration Day in 2021. According to reports, 2,300 text messages turned over to January 6th committee show how Meadows was the central figure behind spreading election lies. The texts also come from Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. On the day of the attack, she sent Meadows an urgent text as the violence unfolded on the Capitol. One text said, "Mark, I was told there's an active shooter on the first floor of the Capitol. Please tell the president to calm his people. This isn't the way to solve anything." It turns out there was no active shooter on the Hill that day.
And former President Donald Trump has been held in contempt for failing to turn over documents to New York Attorney General Letitia James. The judge ordered Mr. Trump to comply with a subpoena for records or face a fine of $10,000 per day. Trump's deadline, though, was March 31st. The state of New York is investigating the Trump Organization and its alleged fraudulent business practices, among them improperly stating the value of his real estate assets to obtain more favorable loans, insurance rates, and tax benefits.
And bad news for the Biden administration. A federal judge is temporarily blocking the White House plan to get rid of Title 42. Title 42 is a federal law that gave the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention the okay to exclude people coming into the country to help prevent the spread of communicable diseases. Now, the Trump administration used it to keep people from coming over the U.S.-Mexico border. Republican-led states filed a lawsuit to stop the Biden administration from lifting the order. Now, it's been used 1.5 million times by the Biden administration to expel migrants without letting them apply for asylum.
The case of another Texas death row inmate will go before the U.S. Supreme Court. Rodney Reed was sentenced to death for the 1996 murder of 19-year-old Stacy Stites in Bastrop, southeast of Austin. Reed claims there's an untested crime scene evidence that would help clear his name. He was scheduled to be put to death in 2019. It was put on hold pending the review of his case. Among Reed's supporters, lawmakers from both parties and celebrities like Kim Kardashian, Beyonce, and Oprah Winfrey. The High Court will take up this case this fall.
And we now know the name of the Grand Rapids police officer who shot and killed Patrick Lyoya during a traffic stop last month. The police chief says in the interest of transparency and avoiding confusion, he's publicly identifying Christopher Schur as the officer involved. The officer is on administrative leave and has been stripped of all his police powers during the investigation. The department says Schur had worked there since 2015 and no other officers were with him at the time of the shooting. It took them 3 weeks basically to name this officer, and now they say in the name of transparency and in avoiding any confusion. I think we've passed that point now. A thing that I'm reading online is that they're trying to victimize the victim, where they are pulling up Patrick Lyoya, they're pulling up his criminal record, and they're trying to say, maybe that officer recognized him because he's pulled him over before or he's had run-ins with him before. None of that matters. He had no idea. The facts still remain that within 90 seconds, the officer had him on the ground and shot him in the head. And the facts still remain that the police department was not transparent. The police department took literally 3 days to name this officer. And for what? It doesn't bring him back. And it makes the community, it makes there more distrust within the community.
Guys, some kind of way I ended up watching the video. And it is such a chilling video. I really don't even recommend for anyone to watch the video. I was doing research on this, on a particular story his name is Christopher Paul Schur. And so I was doing a little research on this man, and this was the execution. This was not just a shooting. What looked like was happening with this situation. This police officer was on duty. He was trying to get impaired drivers off of the street. So he was already looking for something, but this is not what he was looking for. So this happened in the meantime.
Right.
So he was in a area. He saw that Patrick had his license plates weren't recent. He did a U-turn, stalked this man, traveled and hunted him down, and it looked like he lost control. This looked like he was embarrassed because he lost control and he couldn't control him as a police officer. And literally in point blank range, the gun is to this man's head, you guys. And this is not like someone's running away. This was so unnecessary. And Romeo, I didn't get a chance to watch the video until today, and my heart just breaks for this family. They were at the funeral service, and they couldn't even get it together. Because how can you even justify something as awful as this killing?
I'm going to say this real quick. There's three things that's very important. First of all, when something like this happens, police department, body cam footage, release it right away. The officer's name, if you're standing by him, whether you are or not, you need to release that right away. That's the only way we're going to bridge the gap between communities and police officers when it comes to building trust and having respect for them. Those are the things we have to do.
But Romeo, just to let you know, the reason why they couldn't release the body camera footage right away is because this man also turned his body camera footage off. He turned it off. So it's like they couldn't release it right away because there were some inconsistencies here.
There were definitely a lot of inconsistencies, and I think just one of the main things that also sticks out is when the officer pulled him over, he asked him if he understood English, if he spoke English. So, there must have been some sort of language barrier for him to even ask him that. And so I think we just need to, keep that in consideration when you are working within these communities. If you don't speak the language, or if there's a language barrier, maybe call for backup. But chasing someone down with a gun and shooting them within 90 seconds is never the answer.
Honestly, I did a deep dive on this story, and it's such a heartbreaking story. So we'll have more.
Yeah.
For our soulmates. A California man was charged with making threats against Merriam, Webster, the dictionary company. So prosecutors say 34-year-old Jeremy Hansen threatened to bomb Merriam Webster's New York offices and kill its employees over the publisher's definitions for women, girl, boy, and trans women. So the company closed its offices for a week. Authorities say Hansen could face prison time if convicted for sending what authorities described as hate-filled anti-LGBTQ plus messages.
Democrats are hoping an impending Supreme Court ruling on abortion will help them keep a Senate seat in Nevada. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto is waiting to find out what GOP candidate she will face this fall in the midterm elections. The Republican frontrunner in the primary race is Adam Laxalt, an anti-pro-choice advocate who led a state chapter of a group trying to severely limit a woman's right to choose. Democrats hope outrage over the potential loss of the constitutional right to abortion will get liberal Nevadans to the polls. Keeping the Nevada seat will help Democrats in their quest to keep control of the Senate.
And a viral video of a black teen slapping a white girl who called him the N-word has black parents concerned about racial incidents at a Georgia high school. This is cell phone video of the incident. The girl calls the male student the N-word and then he slaps her. The video was edited so the slap isn't shown, but the young man was suspended, and Henry County officials, they didn't punish the girl until sometime later. Black students at the school held a protest to bring awareness to the racist atmosphere, which, according to them, is prevalent in the predominantly white school.
The Florida Senate is sending two controversial bills to Governor Ron DeSantis' desk for his signature. One gives a green light to cut the number of black voting districts in half, and the other would eliminate Walt Disney World's special right to have its own municipality. The voting bill will be challenged by voting rights activists in court, but if it passes, it would give the GOP 4 more Republican-leaning seats at the expense of black voters. Both bills are expected to be signed into law by the end of the week.
A group of civil rights organizations are filing a federal lawsuit against a Texas county alleging its redistricting plan intentionally discriminates against a growing black and Latino population in Galveston. It's the second time in recent weeks voting rights groups have tried to overturn maps approved by the Republican majority in the county. The Department of Justice filed a lawsuit last month against the county for similar reasons. The NAACP and other groups say the map diminishes the voting power of African American and Latino voters by splitting up the area's only majority-minority precinct.
A San Francisco teacher is under fire for bringing cotton into class in an effort to show her students how sharp the plant was when enslaved Africans were forced to pick cotton. So the social studies teacher, who is not being named as of yet, has been in class for the last 5 weeks. Now, some parents say the teacher is being treated unfairly for trying to explain the impact of the cotton on slavery. And so the American economy is also explaining this. So the 8th grade class teacher at a charter school that only has about 435 students, with more than half of the school population being white, she wrote a note to the parents explaining why she used the cotton in classrooms. And she said that she wanted to show students how difficult it was for enslaved Africans to pick the plant. Cotton plants are surrounded by sharp thorns that often cut the hands when people pick it. So there's one parent who said this will evoke many deep, hurtful things about this country, and people don't know how this is hurtful and offensive. And so I kind of was just like, maybe that's the problem here, is that so many black young Americans. We just were talking about Patrick Lyoya. Patrick here, and how black Americans have to watch a black man being gunned down on the street. So that's deep, and that's hurtful for us as well. And so maybe young kids need to know what happened to in the slave trade back in those days. I'm not a parent, so I know that I cannot speak as a parent how it feels, and I would like for you guys to touch on it. But I personally feel like these students probably needed to know what it's like.
Yeah, no, I don't think that you going out and buying a cotton plant and bringing it to school, to basically an all-white school or an all-white classroom, and then showing these kids, well, this is what black people had to do back in the day, and this is, I don't think that's the proper way for a lesson plan. I mean, I know if my son had been in there, maybe as the only black kid, I think that, he would feel a certain way. I think that there are other ways to teach. If she says she's a history teacher, she's a social studies teacher, there are other ways to get the message across without bringing in a cotton plant. I want to know where she got the cotton plant in this day and age. Where do you buy that?
I'm going to go to the other side. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you why. I love these little teaching moments. First of all, we're actually talking about it in the classrooms. So that's a bonus to me, that they're having discussion with kids, teaching about what we went through, right? So that says a lot. And I would be okay with it because it's part of what they're teaching. Look, it's hurtful, it's harmful, it can be deepened into a bad message, but it was the truth. And she was trying to teach the truth.
Exactly.
Therefore, I actually embraced that.
I'm not
now, if you weren't
no.
talking about that at all, but at least we are having it. Conversation.
I agree.
I don't know. I'm still against it. I think that, I just think that if you want to teach these lessons, which are important lessons, do not get me wrong. I think that that's a problem with critical race theory and them trying to take this history out of school. However, I just don't think bringing in a cotton plant is the answer.
Because, like you said, 1 minute we're upset that it's not in the schools, then the next. So, where do we find the balance?
Where do we find it?
Where do we find the balance?
All right. Well, it's been said, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. A black mayor of the small Tennessee town is declaring April Confederate History Month. Yes. Mayor Curtis Hayes is a recipient of a local NAACP Diversity Award during the proclamation ceremony last week. Hayes was joined by members of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. The group claims to condemn racism, even though the men they were honoring wanted to keep black people in bondage. When Hayes was elected to office in 2006, he made a point to let voters know he had the ability to understand all people. Hayes says growing up in a small southern town helped him understand the ways and needs of the people in the town.
And 2 years after voting to remove the Confederate flag from its seal, a Tennessee county finally has the go-ahead. The Williamson County Commission voted in 2020 to request permission from the Tennessee Historical Commission. The county had to go through the commission because the Tennessee Heritage Protection Act limits removal or changing of historic memorials. The decision finally came after months of discussion and appointment of a task force unanimously recommending the removal.
An African-American police sergeant in Kansas City is suing his police department for alleged racial profiling during a traffic stop. Now, this is dash camera video of the 2021 incident. Herb Robinson, he was in a police uniform, and so he was driving his car when he was pulled over by a white and Latino officer. Robinson, who is a detective in the Violent Crimes Unit, was on his way to his part-time job when he was pulled over. So he says he was stopped unlawfully by the officers who caused him emotional distress after the hostile stop. Robinson says they used racially and derogatory remarks during that stop. And he says he reported it to his supervisors, but Robinson says the officers were not disciplined. So this police officer, he says, if they treat one of their own this way, I'm afraid to see how they're treating minorities who are not cops. And that's pretty much what we all feel, right? But it's interesting that this is happening every single day to average Black Americans. And not that police officers are not average Black Americans, but you know what I mean when I say average Black Americans. But this made headline news. And we have so many people that are literally going through this exact same situation who are not cops.
Absolutely, Demi. He had on his uniform. They asked him to get out of the vehicle. I'm still not sure why they pulled him over. They saw him down the street. They followed him for a little bit and they pulled him over. But he's absolutely right. He said, if you will treat me like this, what will you do to everyday citizens? Yeah. And at the end of the day, there was such a disrespect for this man. When he drove off, the dash cam video caught him calling him names, you know, calling him retard and dummy, and just things that you don't show, you don't say to your fellow cops. So, you know, if they do that to him, what will they do to us?
And you do wonder why people of color fear the police, while sometimes they may run. Even though they've done something wrong and may get arrested, they fear for their lives. Like, will I go back home? Will I really go to jail, or will I lose my life? And sometimes they end up losing their lives. But it's stories like this that really stand out, because if this man was just going about his business, going to his job, and some other men in blue pull him over and treat him this way, how does he feel going back to work at that point?
You know, and kudos to him for sticking up for himself and filing this lawsuit. This is like the story we did yesterday with the New Jersey officers. You know, we need to see more of this, you know, because it lets us know that we are not imagining what's happening to us. This is happening within the department, so it's actually happening without the department. And a lot of times you just don't hear about the stories that are happening within the department. So kudos to this man.